What's your name?
Nicole.
All
But
right.
I also people around here also call me Coco.
And where are you from?
Um, just north of here, but I've been staying in this area. I feel like since the beginning of this year. So,
So when you say this area, what particular area is this?
um,
Okay, so South Dallas.
yeah, South Dallas.
Okay. How old are you?
I'm 32.
You're young.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh, I don't feel
You
young.
don't? Okay. Where did you grow up with your mom, with your
Well, so
parents?
I'm originally from Houston.
What part?
Um, like Central, kind of by the Galleria.
Okay, south side of Houston.
Yes, yes, South
Okay.
Side.
Where are your parents?
How do you know Houston better than me?
I used to live in Houston.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Okay. How? What did you ask me
Where
about
are
my?
your parents?
They're still in Houston.
Okay. Do you kind of still communicate with them?
Yeah. I still go back and visit for like the holidays. And I like visiting, but I definitely like living in Dallas better.
You do.
Yeah. I
Um,
moved here in 2016.
you like
So
it?
yeah, I do. I
So
think. Or go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. What are you doing out this late at night?
I know, right? There's a lot going on.
What are you doing?
Just
What are you
another night
doing
in
out?
South Dallas.
Another day, another night in South Dino.
Um, well, I was staying over in another area, and I mean not far from here, but I have a bunch of friends over here, and so I came to see friends, specific
Okay.
like tonight.
Okay.
You're good.
What do you? So here, you want to kind of go?
Yeah. So we're not looking back.
Yeah. So we can go over here.
Okay.
So
Yeah, this is much better.
what are you
Oh yeah.
doing? And this is like a raw footage. So
Okay, cool.
what are you doing out this night? What are you?
Okay,
Because
so
it doesn't seem like a girl like you would be out here in this area. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? At this
yeah,
time of night.
right. So, well, how I said I moved here in 2016.
Hmm.
When I moved to Dallas originally, I moved here to get sober, and since then, I've stayed sober for all but maybe like a year and a half, and of that year and a half, the past year has been like my most recent relapse, to be completely
You
honest.
relapse
Yes.
on what?
And um well, it's all and it's so I don't know why I always just go like straight to this.
Hmm.
But I do mostly opiates. So
Downers.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's downers. For me though, it's weird. It has like the opposite
It
effect.
does that with some people
Yeah.
depending on their chemical imbalance.
Yeah. So I told myself I would do it one time, and then here we are a year later. And I was in a lot of fear about what would happen if I were to get honest, and kind of lived a very double life for a long time. I say a long time, maybe like 6 months. And then I got honest, had some consequences, and have been in and out of not a bunch of treatment centers, but I have tried. I'm a mom, and so I think that like shame and guilt accompanying it this time has been what's been the hardest.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's like inevitably I know that I need to get sober, and so it's
Do you
just
have the desire of being sober?
I do.
You want to be? How old are your kids, or where are
I
your
just have
kids?
one, and he's with his dad. He just turned 3,
Do
and
you miss them?
I like literally can't even talk. Like I can't talk about it.
Okay, that's your baby.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
that's what's been so hard. But he's with his dad, so he's at least safe. Obviously, like I can't have a 3-year-old out here.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially what had happened, I knew his, I mean, I met his dad in recovery, and he relapsed after 5 years, and kind of, I definitely don't blame my relapse on him. At the end of the day, it's my choice. It's my, you know, for lack of better words, it's my choice whether or not I'm going to do what I first did when I got sober. And, I think having been with a 6-month old at the time, and me being the only one raising him for, I mean, I ended up being almost a year. Like I said, my family's in Houston, so it was just me.
Did your parents help you?
They tried. They did the best they could, but it definitely wasn't the help that I really needed at the time.
Did you need more like emotional help?
Yeah, I'd say emotional, and just like someone else just there.
Support.
Yeah. And I have really good girlfriends that are, I mean, they have long term sobriety. And so they were able to help at the time, but only to a certain extent. I mean, they don't have kids of their own. And so I think being a new mom at the time, and just being nervous about anyone else other than me, or like my family, taking care of them, it was just
totally normal.
Yeah. So
how did you grow up? Were you kind of rich growing up, or were you?
I would say that I had a pretty, and I like that you brought this up, because I think people have this idea that like someone on drugs is like the homeless person under the bridge and blah 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 blah, and had a horrible upbringing, and it's just not always the case. I think addiction doesn't discriminate at all.
It does not. It's a spirit.
Yeah. And I grew up pretty normal, childhood. Both of my parents they were married up until I went to college, but my entire childhood they were married. My dad is an attorney and has his own law firm, and so my mom was stay-at-home mom. And
so you had money. If your dad was an attorney and he had his own law firm, money was not an issue in your household.
Yeah, and from the outside looking in, like it definitely looked like a perfect family, you would say. Um, but when I was in high school, that's when, I thought, and I think it is somewhat normal, but, starting to drink and smoke weed, and
a little here, a little there.
Yeah, and I did it only on the weekends. And, looking back though, I think when I drank, I was always drinking more than everybody else, or at least the girls. And, you know, one thing leads to another. I think it's a progressive illness as well. And I always thought that, well, I still have this, or I'm making good grades, I still have friends, my consequence, I've never been to prison, I'm not doing heroin or meth. Those are the people that have problems. And then, fast forward not that long, I'd say several years, really after college, there I was, addicted to those things that I told myself I would never do.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's when I moved to Dallas in 2016.
How were you introduced to opiates?
So
who brought them to you? Because it had to be somebody.
Yeah.
You didn't just find them on the ground, or
Right.
just say, "Hey, let me go find this drug
So
and get
up
this." Who
until
was it?
this point, if I absolutely had to put something down, let's say I'm going home for Easter, and I can, up until this point, like I didn't have to drink to function. I didn't have
Who
to do.
introduced you to opiates?
Yeah. So the reason I was saying that, who introduced me was a guy that I was dating at the time.
It's always that guy.
Yeah. it's always that guy, the guy, and then in my experience, when I've had time sober, when I've relapsed, it's always the guy that did first. And again, I don't place blame on them, but
Mhm.
it definitely makes things a little harder.
Mhm.
And I think as someone that does have this disease, when I feel a certain way internally,
Mhm.
I'm not connected spiritually or whatever, and I get in enough pain, I my brain tells me, well, you know how to make yourself feel better, even though deep down I know that like it's never just one time. But
Mhm.
in that moment, I really do believe
Mhm.
that it is going to be just that one time.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Oh
so
no,
that's
you're no, you're fine.
oh,
Okay, we're good.
okay.
If somebody was watching this your
Uh-huh.
age, white, black, purple, gray, how could you encourage them? What would you say?
Um, I would say that using and drinking is only a very temporary solution, especially if you have the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction.
In your family?
It does run in my family. I mean, I don't know the whole medical and scientific reasoning or what's behind it, but I do know that, or from what I've been told, there is a genetic component, and then circumstances I think do kind of contribute. Um, but for someone that does have the disease, it's definitely not a long term solution that is using or drinking. And from my experience, having had time sober, the amount of happiness and true joy, it doesn't even compare. And I can see you thinking, well, then why are you still out here? And the reality is, like, I would have to want it bad enough, and I think you know I'm getting to that point, honestly. Um, I will say it only gets harder every time, but it should never discourage you from trying one more time, because I know for me, I can tend to honestly just feel exhausted sometimes. And the thought of getting help and um, knowing what it's going to take to be sober for the rest of my life is going to take a lot of hard work and action. And I know that I'm capable of doing it, but it can feel exhausting. And I have to tell myself, okay, just do it one more time. And so that's what I would say to somebody else that's maybe struggling, is just try it.
One more
And
time.
honestly,
Try again.
yeah, try again. And you have nothing to lose. It's worth it to try
Hmm.
it.
If your parents were to see this, what would you say to them? Would you have anything on your heart to say?
Um, I know that it's been really hard on my family.
Hmm.
Um, and so I know that they know that like I love them and care about them,
Hmm.
and they've been around long enough in terms of like walking through this journey with me, having been sober and then not.
Hmm.
I know that it's hard on them, but I also know that they know it has nothing to do with them.
Right.
They did nothing wrong. They've been a good mom, a good dad to me.
Hmm.
Um, and if anything, I would just want them to know that, like, I'm okay
You're
and
okay.
things will be okay. And that I'm going to take the necessary steps that I need to. And when I do that, it's because I'm 100% willing. And yeah.
All right.
Hello, hello, hello. This is La Trinity, and this is another segment of Acts for the Kingdom. This was a beautiful girl. Her nickname was CoCo. It kind of shocked me because when I looked at her, my presumption was that she was a rich blondie girl in the hood, and she looked out of place. And this is not to be judgmental, this is just being realistic. Even though she's currently living a street life right now, you can still look at her and tell by her appearance and her demeanor that she grew up wealthy. I remember her stating that her father owned his own law firm and he was an attorney. So money was not an issue. And just for me to see her, she stuck out like a sore thumb, and she was a perfect candidate of this interview. And I remember her saying that she felt more comfortable with being in the area that she's in now than going back home to visit. It's kind of interesting to me. Don't really quite know why, but I pray that one day that the Lord deliver her from her addiction and she gets to reunite with her son again and she can feel whole. Let's just pray and stand in the gap for CoCo.